Everyone, and welcome to With XO. I'm Xorje Olivares, and I'm excited because I have not had a chance to talk to my next guest in about maybe 2 years. So, had a chance to meet online, as most people were doing in the sense of COVID. But I was talking to my next guest, particularly about a new project that he was working on. Don't know if you heard of it, called Selena the series on Netflix, but was highly successful and was very important for people like me who grew up in the South Texas region and was very much a fan of Selena. And as you can see in the background of this conversation, there's a lot of things that are very important to those of us who identify as Mexican American. And one of those spaces is the luchador space, right? There's all these different images that we who are part of this culture have seen and who have grown up with. And how exciting that something that is so representative of who we are as a culture is now being used to help the culture. So my guest is Moisés Zamora, who was the showrunner and was executive producer of Selena the series, and is now the founder of Astrolucha, which is a fascinating new entity that is being designed to help people like myself and those of you who are out there who are also creatives get your work in front of the people who could probably elevate it and can get it to the eyeballs that we've been wanting it to see the work that we've done and the amount of passion that we have. So excited to talk to Moises not only about Astrolucha, about his own understanding of the imageries that are tied to this very big cultural phenomenon, but to see how he can be that conduit for folks who are creatives, who are wanting to get their stuff seen, how he can be somebody who is helpful in that journey. So, Moises, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, and it's definitely been quite a while. And I'm excited to be here and to share about this new project with you and the ambitions that we have for not only our community but just the superhero universe a lot.
So let's talk about the superhero universe because I think a lot of us we live in a world where Marvel dictates a lot of stuff and we're very much aware of what the superhero universe looks like. Talk about your superhero universe and the one that you're creating with Astro Lucha and why it very much is more reality than it might be fantasy for some folks.
Well, I think one of the important things to acknowledge is that we as a community sometimes don't feel represented in media and entertainment as well as we would like to. I mean, the numbers don't lie, right? Our stories are not out there as much as we like to. People are not given the opportunity as creators, as producers, as writers to tell stories that come from a Latino identity, a Mexican American identity. For me, and I'm seeing in one of the most obvious places that we look for that kind of representation is that superhero universe, right? And we don't have a lot to choose from as Mexican American. I mean, the idea that Tenoch Huertas Namora on Black Panther has created waves across our communities because you have an indigenous man at a superhero level being up portrayed as a superhero, it just confirms that we're so hungry for that kind of representation. It's like soul shaking. For me, I grew up, I'm a Mexican immigrant. I grew up in Mexico and then I moved to the United States when I was 11 years old. But during that time in my childhood, I grew up with a different kind of superhero universe. I grew up with El Santo and Blue Demon and Rayo de Jalisco and not only that, I loved watching those films where they were like take on mummies and vampires and zombies, and those caped heroes became my superheroes growing up. I used to even collect, albums with little stamps. You'd buy at the grocery store, you collect the stamps, trade them at the elementary school, and build stories, with that in our worlds, in our imagination. So I took that inspiration because I feel I'm one of those people that if like I don't see something out there that I go out there and build it, and I'm like, how am I going to build a league of superheroes and try to take on Marvel and DC comics? I mean, it's impossible. But I don't think that you have to take them on. You just have to provide that space. You have to provide those identities. You just have to provide the stories. And I feel people will be grateful enough in the sense that, like, oh, here's an option. I can do something with that story. Because a lot of the imagination in world building happens when you have that interaction with fans, when they see images and they're like, this reminds me of that and this, and they can relate to their childhood or their past or their identity, wherever they're from. And the Lucha Libre space is so wonderful because it allows you to wear a mask and be something else. Anybody can put on a mask and suddenly you're a superhero, which is no different from the Batmans of the world and the Spider-Mans of the world, right? It's just another identity to put on that actually is closer to home, closer to the heart. And when I saw that there was not enough representation, I'm like, but our culture or identities, our mythology are so beautiful and rich. Why don't we take the beloved cultural phenomenon that is a luchador, dates back to the Aztecs, right? And take that and elevate it. Give them superpowers. Put them in a Star Wars setting where they're like fighting intergalactic like battles, And so we're like, well, how am I going to do that? And why would I do that? Well, because we need to start creating the stories we want to see. And in Hollywood, where I come from, and because I'm still a product of Hollywood, Selena had was a wonderful, life-changing experience as a creator, and catapulted me into the Hollywood sphere. And I still work in Hollywood. I have 2 shows in the works. I'm about to direct a feature film in the next year, and so that is still, you know, a reality for me. But that doesn't mean that it's not frustrating, or there's still a lot of work to be done for our Latino community when it comes to representation. So I'm the type of person, like I said, I'll just do the work because it's story building and that's my happy place. So I reached out to Phil Jimenez, who is a beloved comic book creator, artist, legend. He's currently working on the comic book for Wonder Woman, Historia. And in fact, he received the Eisner Award for his art, and which is like kind of the Oscar for comics. And I went to Phil and be like, Phil, I want to create a league of superheroes that is like has an inspiration in lucha libre, and not only that, but I want it to be inclusive. I want it to be diverse. I want it to be black, brown, all races, trans, queer. Let's not hold back, because if you're gonna be trying to speak to the status quo, what's out there, and you're not satisfied, you better go out there and not hold back. I mean, these are imaginary worlds. I mean, nowhere in the universe is a queer brown superhero, and
That can't be true. There has to be at least 5.
and especially with all the metaverses now, right? It's
I
like
know.
you have to do it. And so we started creating what that was, hand drawing from the ground up. We're doing it backwards. We're first creating the superheroes, and then we're building community. And then hopefully with the help of creators that I'm inviting into our Discord community, find us on Discord, Astrolucha. Together we'll build those stories, whether it's a comic book, a graphic novel, a podcast, and start building our own legal superheroes that actually represents us.
So it was funny because when you first brought up the concept of the masks that we wear and we're all superheroes in our own day to day, I pulled up back the image that is currently in the background. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of Astrolucha, uh, when you see this image, because we talked a little bit about it before we got started, but even just seeing an image like this, do you feel like you know this person, or that you are excited to have this person be known into the world?
I think through images, the power of image, and when it comes to the art that's carefully, curated, drawn, thought out. This is an image by Jay Gonzo. Jay Gonzo is Mexican American. He's an illustrator, really talented, has several comic books out there. He loves lucha libre for the same reason too, because it is both. It represents a value system. The word lucha itself, I love it in Spanish. For those who don't know Spanish, lucha, it just doesn't just translate to fight, because it connotes something else. It's like it's a compliment to be like, you're a luchador, you're a fighter, because it almost feels that you're pursuing a noble goal. It almost feels that it's relentless, that you're not a quitter, and it is actually very representative of a lot of immigrant communities. When you come to America against all odds and obstacles, like to be a luchador in this country is to not give up in the quest of making it here, to provide for your family, to provide for their loved ones, or to your own well-being and dreams. So that in itself to me is very touching and very emotional. And when I see luchador carefully drawn, thought out, the one in the background, his name is Midnight Estrella. And a lot of us are, tackling the feminine masculinity of the Spanish language. And sometimes we use the E, sometimes we use the X to just be inclusive. But I like it that in this case, Estrella is a feminine word, but midnight is also like a neutral English word. And it just already by, through his name, you build story. He's a brown man. He's powerful. He's also like, I feel like in Gonzo does this very well. He gives emotion to his characters, and I think the best artists that, especially the ones that we're working with, one image tells you all, right? And so there's sadness in this luchador. There's been struggle. You can tell that perhaps he's not new to the ring or to life, and but he's, out of his own will and power, he's going to continue setting himself up for battle and fight in clandestine corners of the universe to just be validated for who they are, to mark our place in the universe. And I think that speaks for a whole community. And I love that. And I love that aspect of, a lot of it that comes with building a tech company, because it's essentially a tech company. But a lot of it, it's a lot of administrative contracts, deals, like a lot of text that also comes with producing stuff. So I'm very familiar with that work. But what I love about this project, as well as, the writing and creative I do on the side, is that you get to build stories in a world that you haven't seen on your terms. And when we went out to Phil and Gonzo and the over 16 Latino, Latina, Latina artists that we're working with, they all had their own POV of what it means to a superhero today in contemporary times and how that sort of translates in the universe. And the art has been so beautiful. It's almost when you give creative control, when you let people sort of take their imagination with just a very limited prompt. I said, I want Lucha Libre superheroes, human, not human, trans, biracial, alien, metallics, put it all together, but they have to wear a mask. Even if they're a robot, the robot has to wear a mask.
It's because it's part
Because
of the mystique of it all. Like if
it's
you're
part of the
speaking about
mystique.
Lucha Libre, there has to be the mask.
And it has to reference the Lucha Libre. And yes, it takes place in the universe. Yes, we elevated it to a different place and setting. All that is true, but we want it to be true to his Mexican roots, to his Latino roots. And we've been so blessed with the passion and talent of all the people that have participated, all the artists and creators, that it is inspiring me because it's like I get a new luchador because they're all hand drawn. They're like, nothing's generated art, it's not graphic design. They're all hand drawn, painted, it goes through the process. And I get one and I'm like, oh my God, I can see the comic book of that. I want to start writing that. And then I get another one. I'm like, oh crap, an animated series for that one. And that for sure, because there's also like some dark ones. And I'm like, ooh, that's a horror movie. So it's, so I get,
The
it's
options
just
are
really
endless.
exciting.
So to kind of talk about the mechanics of Astrolucha and the artwork that we're seeing right now, you mentioned that you've worked with 16 other Latino, Latina, Latine artists. So how do they come into the picture, and how are you working in collaboration with them to make Astrolucha exactly what we know it to be today?
Well, at first, we wanted to put these luchadores out in the world as digital collectibles, meaning you buy them on OpenSea for a specific price, and then you get to keep them. And as a buyer, and if you own, like, for example, Midnight Estrella, it comes with a licensing deal. Again, we're doing this backwards a little bit. So it's like you can make T-shirts of, Midnight Estrella and sell them, as long as we're part of it and we're helping you and you're part of the community. So that's part of our deals. If at some point, like one of the creators or you yourself want to make an animated series, we have the resources. I mean, keep in mind that I'm still working in Hollywood, right? The networks, the writers, and stuff like that. If you're part of our Discord and you're like, yo, I want to make like the movie for Midnight Estrella, or a graphic novel or a comic book, how can I make that happen? Well, we want to be able to, if you're a creator or a writer that is interested in that, to give you the tools, the know-how, almost like mini development labs, because I already do that, Jorge. I already do that. I've been doing that for years. I was given an opportunity to break into television by a Latino TV writer. His name is David Perez, like my padrino. I was my first job. It was for John Reilly, a black entertainer. So and the other executive producer was Michael McDonald, a queer entertainer. So everyone that has given me opportunities that change my life have come from marginalized communities. So to me, being able to create illegal superheroes, you know, sell them at a small fee for a licensing IP deal, and then eventually develop all those stories with that community feels like, you know, giving back, because then we're building something together and we're not knocking on the Marvel and DC door to validate us with a superhero that, like, it truly would be meaningful. Sure, I'm not saying I'm ungrateful for Tenoch Huerta. I think I love that he's doing that. I think it just confirms the need. Or even the upcoming Beetle, like Blue Beetle from DC Comics. Oh my God, like that's going to be so hot. And I'm definitely showing up for that. It's just that that's not enough. We're so diverse. Um, we are multiple countries, multiple races, multiple, like, identities under the moniker of Latino, Latine. So there's enough space for all these stories to develop and to build together. And this is my way of doing it. Selling digital collectibles so we can create IP, whether it's a graphic model, like a graphic novel or a podcast or a film, and then finding the distribution and the financing so these projects can actually get to our audiences. And we're also doing through blockchain, and I can explain that in a little bit.
Yeah. I'm curious about, so here's the most exciting part about being a creative, right? And you are dealing with the most creative of things right now with Astrolucha because of the work that people are submitting to you all. Um, how are you already, like, how is your brain working when you see each of these things? You were talking about Midnight Estrella, or Estrella Midnight, right? Or I'm getting it
No,
confused.
Midnight Estrella, just
Midnight
like
Estrella.
that.
There we go. I was like, I know that there's the feminine and the kind of ambiguity, but the I'm sure as soon as each of these artworks are coming to you, you as somebody who's in these writers' rooms, who's already known what it's like to be in the director's chair, I'm sure you have ideas about how you want each of these to play out. So, how are you maybe collaborating with some of the people that you've already who have already reached out to you about potentially using some of this artwork?
Well, one of the things that we're doing off the bat is we're creating an interface in which, once you buy a collectible, you can connect it to our interface, and then suddenly you'll have each luchador will have its own, like, almost Facebook profile.
Oh,
Um,
that's what
it,
it needs
it,
to have at this point.
of course, it's got like the powers, where they're from, who their legion is, but it also has a small 2 to 3 sentence origin story that just gives you enough to get you excited about who the superhero is, whether good, bad, or in between. But there's also going to be a part of our interface in which you, the owner, the person that wants to continue telling the story, will be able to send your kind of add to the story, almost like fan fiction, add to the the origin story that we have for the children. It obviously will approve it, because we want to make sure that the offensive stuff is out of this world. We want to be kind and compassionate to all people. And so then then that allows as a community to build and tell our own stories and contribute to it. So yes, I have little ideas about everything, but at the same time, I want to create a space where people can also contribute their own ideas and stories for each luchador.
So let's talk a little bit about how that contribution will look like and how it's going to be this very easy thing for people to be able to take part in and to make all of this stuff come to life.
Yes, I think there are three several steps to take. It might be a lot for people to just sort of process. So definitely join our Discord community. Discord is a new app where people come together to talk, to share. And if you don't have it, download it and find us at Astrolucha. We're also on all the socials for under Astrolucha and our website, astrolucha.io. So then that's where we're really introducing the world to people. You buy yourself a Astro Luchador on OpenSea. You're part of the community, and then we can slowly start building that, that story, that origin story. At astrolucha.io, you're also, once the interface goes live, you'll be able to create an account, go in there, and participate in the origin story build up, like the building of the origin story of the specific hero, and that it'll have it'll pop up because it'll recognize that you bought one, and it'll show all that stats that we call for your superhero. Because we're also developing an online game where I don't know if you're familiar with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like a trading card game. So that's in the works. Your superhero will be able to fight in battles with other superheroes, and there's point systems. We're taking a lot of some of the battles and language that we're using in our mythology are nahuatl from the Aztec original language. And we have a woman artist from Ecuador who is also using Quechua language to name the superheroes and to add to the mythology of that league. So it's really fascinating, especially when our superhero holders or owners will be able to contribute in telling their stories.
I think I want to reiterate something that you've talked about in the course of our conversation, in that the possibilities are really endless, right? You mentioned a little bit about the Yu-Gi-Oh cards and the Pokemon. Like, this can be trading cards, this can be video games, this can be a podcast series where you follow the origin story of each of these. Like, it's heavily sound design, you have videos, you
Yeah.
have all sorts of things. So I want to make sure that I highlight something that is made note of when you go to the website, and it says fight for your place in the universe. And you've talked about this, right? This idea of world building and how we need to be responsible for our own place in this world building. So let's talk a little bit about the universe, right? The universe that you've created with Astrolucha and that you and your partners are trying to develop here. Talk about how you want that universe to look for people and how you want it to be easily navigated by those who really want to take advantage of what Astrolocha is doing here.
Are you speaking about the tech universe or just the imagination behind it?
A little bit of both. I think it goes hand in hand, right? Like, the one necessitates the other. And I think there's something that's really exciting where creativity can thrive in each of these spaces. And I'm sure you have such a really bold, wonderful idea about what these universes can do.
Yes, I think there are two aspects to it. I think the only reason why I think we're able to do this in the traditional sort of business mumbo jumbo to set up a company and a corporation like Marvel and then do all of this, it's I'd have to have millions of dollars and a lot of infrastructure. But we are leaning into blockchain, which is this new technology, basically this digital ledger that lives in a few servers that essentially is how cryptocurrencies occur and NFTs and all of that, because it tracks digital assets. It basically says this digital asset belongs to you because of this data or this code that tells me that digital asset belongs to you. Obviously, anyone can take a picture of Minar Estrella and put it up on their social media, but the IP or the code that is embedded in this image actually will only work with the true owner of this image. So that's why I think it's really fantastic, because with that little bit of technology, if you can sort of track ownership of digital assets, you're now talking about the possibility of transferring, ownership of digital assets, whether it's an image, a video, a painting. You see the whole digital art movement happening, you see the NFT movement happening, but that's because you can transfer, digital assets. We are in the process of, yeah, sure, right now we have superheroes and we're creating a universe that is world building, not only because we're interested in the story, which is not interested in creating pretty art. We want to give it meaning. Fight for your place in the universe is not only speaking to the universe that we live in now and our social condition, with the lack of representation, the injustices, the racism that we have to fight just because we're a little darker or we speak a little differently or we have an accent or we're or a legal status or immigration status. All of that is that sort of real universe, which translates into an entertainment world where we actually see the consequences of not having representation, right? Because it's like it it informs people that don't know people like us how we are, right? So to us, it's important to put those that representation in the entertainment universe. But we can do it with this technology because it allows people like us that don't have huge infrastructures to create community, to create, because like technology is so great right now, with the
There's so
same
much
technology.
happening that is just like trying to keep up with every little new advancement. Like, oh my God.
It's like it's so really fun and great. And look at it, like I'm not a tech person, but I am a creator. I do have imagination, and I do have enough of a business and entrepreneurial like skill sets to be able to understand that if you take a little bit of technology, use your imagination, then you're still using the same skill sets that to write an episode of Selena. Like you're still using the same creativity in order to provide an infrastructure for people that don't feel that they have the opportunities right now. Because a lot of us, especially Latinos, like we don't grow up in, Hollywood with legacies, right? Like, when I came out, my second or third coming out to my parents was like, "Oh, I'm a writer." It's like, "Oh,
Of
what
all
is
the
that?"
things you could have done with your life.
We're immigrants and we sacrifice our life for you to be what? What happened to lawyer? What happened to doctor?
Oh, the
So, but
dreams
it's
that they always have.
but now, of course, with the success and after a long time of like working at it and being able to fight for your story, they understand that having that place as a creator in a culture or in a society that sometimes is not as kind to people like us from our background, it's important to start to tell the right stories. And a little bit, it's just as simple as creating those superheroes. But creating a league of superheroes and taking on Marvel and DC, or at least the entertainment community, is like that's intimidating. But it is not intimidating if you have technology and tools in order to make that happen. So yes, it's a combination of the imaginative universe of superheroes that we're creating with all these fighting clandestines like legions and powers and stuff, but at the same time, the technology that is then allowing us to build a community, take this on, and hopefully make something really beautiful out of it that transcends technology and people.
I want to focus a little bit on this might sound like a weird little tangent, but it very much ties in about the idea of safety, right? We're talking about superheroes. We're talking about these imaginative things that we've created. But in a way, y'all are the superheroes to these creators because you're making sure that the images that they create are handled with care, that they are put in front of the right people that who will appreciate what they've done and how they have been representative of either their cultures or their lived experiences. So talk about how that element of safety in all the ways in which it can be described for this purpose, how that's part of the conversation for y'all at Astrolucha.
Well, one of the things that the Web3 blockchain, creator empowered economy, if you want to call it, it's really appealing to creators is that you can create something like a Midnight Estrella. You embed it with code. It's protected. They know actually Midnight Estrella and its code will tell you who created that superhero in that digital sort of NFT, if you want to call it, format. So there's no way around it, right? Like it's transparent, it's there, people can look it up, it's in its code, it's part of the technology. That image knows who created it. And so with that, you have a lot of responsibility because then you create this sort of protection, defense mechanism, or safety, like you said, for the creator. Nobody can, say that Gonzo did not create that. So the creator feels taken care of. And then if that, whoever buys that digital collectible decides to sell it, and wherever an upper market of NFT or Web3 collectibles you can sell, then that creator themselves gets a little, commissioned, a little fee for every sell and resell. So they are constantly getting these royalties from a sale or from the garnering of the purchasing and exchange of their own art, which is very exciting for any creator. Usually, they buy you out, they own everything, and you'll get, $10, and that's it. You created that art, but somebody else really owns it, or at least you will not be getting paid for the exploitation of it. I know that, like, a lot of comic book artists, including Marvel and DC greats, when they create something, it's and it becomes a $1 billion franchise, they get like a $5,000 paycheck, right? that's sort of the urban legend, but it's not far from the truth. And it's just mind-boggling that your art, your creation as creators, whether it's an artist or writer, and I can absolutely relate to that, because I'm a creator myself. I want to be able, and we're not trying to become millionaires here, we're just trying to be given the opportunity to tell our stories on our terms and also be compensated for it. And that's my responsibility towards the artist, not only to give them the creative freedom to participate in here, but to make sure that they're taken care of if Midnight Hysteria becomes the next Hollywood hero.
Again, I want to continue to emphasize the fighting for your place in this universe. And let's talk a little bit about Astrolucha's fighting for its place in the entertainment universe and making sure that we are seeing, that you all are seeing, that the work that is being funded by Astrolucha and highlighted by Astrolucha is seen by the world that you've been a part of and have been incredibly successful in.
One of the things that we're fighting ourselves, trying to make a mark in the entertainment industry, is, and we still have a lot of work to do. Of course, we're releasing the superheroes right now, and we're building communities. So yes, it's really important to bring people together, talk about it, and and learn about our project, and come on, help us because we need you. But I think it's gonna boil down to being able to show Hollywood and the entertainment system that we can create our stories, that we can help each other, that we can self finance, that we can find a way to distribute. We almost have to be, I shouldn't say almost, we must be a small studio, one stop shop, IP creation, superheroes, financing and producing and development, and distribution. And like I said, we're working on a distribution arm right now. And I'll give you an example. When you buy a movie on Amazon or Apple, digital copy, it's a movie, you love it, you want to keep it. You might, cancel your membership, but you got that movie, that streaming membership, but you got that movie. I mean, technically, you don't really own it. It's kind of there in their platform. It's not like you can sell it to a third party or someone else, or like you used to have when you have a DVD, you sell it on a garage sale. You can sell it. It doesn't really belong to you. It's
It
kind of just
doesn't. That's such a good point.
But with blockchain technology, because it could, track ownership of digital assets, you'll be able to buy a digital movie and then sell it if you want to. We are currently trademarking our version of what that is. It's not a DVD; it's a DVT. It's a digital video token. And with a DVT of a movie, you'll be able to buy it, watch it, enjoy it like a digital movie. Over time, if you want to keep it because you love it, you'll get extras like you used to get from a DVD, director's commentary, interviews, footage that was deleted footage. And over time, you're actually curating your own relationship and movie experience. Or, it also could be applied to comics and podcasts, but you're creating your own movie experience. And suddenly that particular movie, that particular DVT, I should say, it's different from other people's experience and other DVTs. And that itself becomes a collectible, and it could actually garner more value in the open market. But that's something that we're very excited about, and we're building a prototype. And you could only do that with this kind of technology. So for us, that was important because one of the also challenges for creators, independent creators that are not working directly with the studio is they don't have a distribution outlet. They make their beautiful film, award-winning, top festival run, critically acclaimed, 100% Rotten Tomatoes, and they can't get a distribution deal. And if they do, the streaming platforms will give you just a small fee, and you'll never make your money back. So when you don't get to make, most of your money back, you don't get to make a second project. And for people that come from the immigrant background or not the same resource that other people have, or it's already hard as a person of color or a creator of color to break in, that might be the end of your career. And so it was really fundamental for us to not only just we'll just create, a bunch of superheroes. We'll just develop projects and produce them. No, we also had to find a solution just in case, there was no distribution opportunity, because we want to set ourselves up for success, and we want to be a solution to a big problem in Hollywood that just obviously capitalist driven. There's no more DVD sales. It's like straight to streaming. That's it. You're done. Nobody's going to the movie theaters. If I can stay home and watch that beautiful film with my family, it's cheaper. The popcorn is really expensive. So,
Priorities.
and
Gotta save the money. Can't be spending on
you gotta
on the
save the
sodas.
money. And when you do take the family, it's usually for a Disney movie when you take the kids, because you have, like a big family. It becomes a special event. So we're giving the people the opportunity to have another way of earning that sort of income back, that investment back, and we could only do it through this technology, and that's why it's exciting. That's why it's exciting, because it's allowing independent creators to have another opportunity that outside of the Hollywood system.
So you're talking about this developing this new technology, trademarking this new technology, or at least the language surrounding the technology. What are other things that you're hoping that the Astrolucha universe looks like in 2023, since we're getting close to New Year?
One of the things that we're excited about 2023 is not only building the infrastructure and starting to show our Astroluchadores out into the world, but selfishly, I want to write that script. I want to write the Midnight Estrella script. I want to write,
It's gonna
or at
happen.
least,
The end of
uh,
2023, there'll be the
it's
TV
just
line article
like,
that says Moisés Zamora, right? I can see it
yeah,
now.
and but also something that it's already kind of been happening in the works. Again, like I said, I'm already big in programs and mentoring and community. I always volunteer to all the the fellowships like Alphas, like the Latino Writers Committee, like whatever it is. I'm there trying to give notes, trying to help other writers and creators get that break, because I was given that opportunity. So this is just another way of doing what I was doing before. And I not only can't wait to be able to announce that I'm writing the movie for one of these superheroes that we've created, but that other people that are part of this gotten their funding or their production or the distribution as a result of our efforts. And if we change a few lives and a handful of BIPOC creators, especially Latinos, Latinas, then we're already actually adding numbers to the dismal lack of representation going on. And I'm a person that, like, while I love panels and talk all day and and night about the lack of representation, I would rather use that energy into building infrastructures or like action driven, results driven type of efforts, and this is one of them. And so I think next year, well, when we have our, or hopefully sooner than 2 years, Jorge, because when we have our next podcast, we'll be talking
Yes.
about what we're producing in the Astrolucha space.
I feel like it's only appropriate to end our conversation. We were talking about how this has been an image that has been with you since you were a child, right? This idea of the luchador and somebody being able to be who they want to be, even if they're wearing a mask in the process, but just living up to the full potential that they have through the passion that they exhibit. Now that you know that you are that person, you are the superhero who's coming in, creating this space for a lot of other creatives who look like you, who love like you, who have lived experiences like your own. How does that feel knowing that you are that person for them?
You know what? Like, I don't, and not that I don't take it seriously. I'm obviously honored and grateful that like I can be that, but it's just my goal is not only to provide those opportunities for people, but in a very selfish way is it makes me so happy to learn from the community coming together, from building, because, and as a queer man, um, as a queer Mexican American immigrant man, our idea of family, community, of coming together is different. Sometimes we have to find our chosen families. Sometimes we have to fill in those gaps when we found rejection from our own families, and that to me has driven a lot of my art, a lot of my creativity, a lot of that pursuit of validation. But what I've learned is not necessarily the fame, the fortune, or the recognition in the press. What I've learned that really fulfills that missing, perhaps uh, piece of family that is not 100% there, or acceptance, is when my community, my chosen family shows up, and or I show up for them. And while, like, yes, these are very ambitious projects, and a League of Superheroes, a tech company, a new distribution model, it's like it's a lot, right? But it all stems from the need to belong, to be loved for who you are, with all your superpowers or lack thereof, to be loved and accepted in a group of people like you that have the same struggles, that can relate to your own pursuit of happiness. And so I think, to me, the luchador speaks to me because, as a queer Mexican man, I put on a lot of masks for people in order to get through doors. Now I'm putting this mask because it actually represents my true, most authentic version of myself. And to live in that space and to be able to share it with a group of people, with like-minded people that are there with you for the right mission, I think that to me is as close as happiness and love I could ever get. So it's all selfish.
You're like, punto final. It's all selfish. What am I gonna say? I love being this person in this skin, and yeah, it's true though. As somebody who inhabits a lot of those qualities, those lived experiences of being queer, of being Mexican American, of somebody who comes from the border and understands how much trying to belong in a universe, especially because we've had to create a universe of our own doing for so long, being able to actually exist in the universe with our brothers and sisters who are here with us, There's something really special about that. So I want to make sure that I give you a chance again to allow folks to see where they can find Astrolucha, how they can get involved in the conversation, how they can be a part of the Discord. How exactly can they do that?
They could join us at any of our socials, Twitter, Instagram, at Astrolucha. Obviously, check us out and check our project out on astrolucha.io, not .com, .io. That's our website. And the best way that to have these conversations is to join our Discord. Our channel is Astrolucha. You could also find it in any of our socials. Find us, talk to us. Let's build community. Let's build family. Let's talk lucha libre or not. Let's just talk life. We're one of the things that I'm putting myself out there is not only putting my own resources, my reputation. A lot of people believe in this project. 20 artists are part of this. It's because it's ringing true with audiences and people. We want to be able to live in a universe that we're accepted, that we're validated, but not just that, where we are actually, succeeding to actually, taking the next level of being, of belonging. And we just want to have a good time doing it. Join the Astrolucha fight, mark yourself, fight for your place in the universe, and that's our logo because it represents a fiction world, but also it becomes a real modal in the real life.
Hmm. Well, Moises, thank you for involving me in your universe. This is, as I mentioned, the second time we've had a chance to talk about stuff on a professional context, and I'm very excited about what Astrolucha is doing and how I could be of help to it. And I really hope people, again, go see where Astrolucha is on Discord, visit the website, astrolucha.io, and stay tuned for all the cool projects that Moises is working on, because in case you missed it, there are a lot of them coming up in the very near future. So Moises, thank you so much again for joining me to talk about Astrolucha.
Thank you, Jorge. It's a pleasure to be here.